Guys, welcome to Smack Talk Wrestling's Superstar Shake-Up predictions video. So what I'm doing is I'm going to give 5 picks of superstars from either SmackDown and Raw and seeing where I reckon they will go. Now they can either be single stars, tag teams, or I could separate a tag team and make them into singles competitors. That's the choices I've done. As well as that, I'm looking at the 7 superstars who have already been announced to be got their call-ups. Those are Heavy Machinery, EC3, Lacey Evans, Lars Sullivan, Nikki Cross, Aleister Black, Ricochet. Those are the ones which have already been confirmed, and I'm going to try and predict where they're going to be put after the Superstar Shake-Up, because that was what was announced. But they would be allowed to go on both Raw and SmackDown, and then at the Superstar Shake-Up, they won't choose. Management will choose where they go. So with all that said and done, this is Smack Talk Wrestling's Superstar Shake-Up predictions. That's a mouthful right there. So let's look at my first prediction from a superstar going from SmackDown to Raw. And this was quite difficult because there's a hell of a lot of superstars on SmackDown who I don't want to see leave. But this one seemed to be most likely, it's least likely to happen, but if it did happen, it would be a good little shock. And that is none other than the Viper himself, Randy Orton, a 13-time WWE champion. It would be awesome if the Viper himself got picked for Raw, and when the show looks like it's about to end, we could have it as, you know, someone celebrating a big victory. Randy Orton comes out of nowhere, and that is how he's introduced back into Raw. Just have him RKO Seth Rollins at the end of Raw. That would just be like, oh my god, the Viper's here and he means business. Going after the biggest name on Raw would be a huge coup for the writing team, because it would be unpredictable. No one would see it coming. Well, I predicted it, so I've seen it coming, but it would be a hell of a shock thing, and fans everywhere would be on social media talking about it as well. So it's one of those ones, it would be a hell of a pick, and you could just have it all night, where it's like, oh, that's it for the Superstar Shake-Up on Raw. Seth Rollins celebrating his victory, RKO out of nowhere, and there's Randy Orton standing over Seth friggin' Rollins. So that's my first pick for Raw. Next up is, it was difficult this one because I wanted to pick a superstar who is full-time, because I looked at the Raw roster and it's really difficult because if you look all at the top card, everyone's quite busy and you really can't take anyone really out of that scene without damaging a feud or, you know, taking away. So I looked at the mid-card section, and there was one man who is full-time, never on TV, but he's a powerhouse, and that's Titus O'Neil. Now I know what you're thinking, whoa, what are you doing? Now listen to me. Titus O'Neil is a full-time superstar. He's huge, and if he was given the right opportunity, he could be a good mid-card superstar. Now I was thinking this, if SmackDown got Titus O'Neil, make it that Shane picks him. Get Shane to go, I want Titus O'Neil, and have Titus O'Neil turn heel and have him as Shane's muscle, extra muscle. Have him work with Shelton Benjamin and Sanity as well. Just another big guy to have against the Miz, and just have that feud. That would really work. I mean, obviously you could have Titus turn face during this whole time when he's working for Shane, because Shane is belittling them every time they failed to take down the Miz. I mean, Titus turns on Shane, you now have Titus and the Miz working together. That gives Titus a bit of a rub on a good big star on SmackDown, the Miz, and that would work. Just think about it. Titus is a hell of a worker. Yes, he's not one of the best in the ring, but you could still have him be a huge asset to a storyline like the Miz versus Shane. So that's why Titus O'Neil is one of my picks for the Superstar Shake-Up to go to SmackDown. Next up in the Superstar Shake-Up from going to SmackDown to Raw. Now this one was again choosing on how to build up the brand. Now as we all know right now, Raw's tag team division is absolutely atrocious. You probably got the Revival and Chad Gable and Bobby Roode. That's it. Now, I'm going to shake things up quite a bit. One, we're going to have Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows come back to Raw. They only joined SmackDown in the last Superstar Shake-Up. And let's be honest, it hasn't worked out for them. But having them come back onto a tag team division, which is bare right now, bare as hell, think let's do it. Have them become the big names on the tag team. Allow them to be the biggest heels on the Raw tag team division. Just let them run amok. Let them do what they've done properly in New Japan on Raw. Let them be the muscle. Let them take out everyone. Okay? There is a reason I put Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows in this pick. And it's to be with the person who else is in this pick later on. But you could have a storyline where they join a faction. You could have them run roughshod on everyone. Make them feel as dangerous as they felt when they were in New Japan. Now, when they went to SmackDown, I was optimistic. I was like, oh my god, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows are finally going to get the SmackDown tag team titles. They're going to work with some of the best tag teams, and they never got used. Now that the Raw tag team division is absolutely barren, put them in there. Make them the big heels. Get them working like they should be working when they were on SmackDown. If you have them as the big bad heels of Raw's tag team division going against all the others, you will absolutely be making money because these guys are perfect. So for me, the next pick from going from SmackDown to Raw is Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Next up is a superstar I was really impressed me in their in-ring abilities. Now, he's impressed me when he was on NXT, 205, and now on Raw. But I want to split him up from who he's working with right now. And that man is none other than Lio Rush. Now, I want Lio Rush to go from Raw to SmackDown. Reason is, I want to see him compete against guys like Ali. I want to see him taking on those bigger challenges. Now, I think Lio Rush has the ability. You look at his in-ring ability, he is absolutely fantastic. And he's really good on the mic. And more lately, Bobby Lashley has been speaking more for himself and less using Lio Rush. Maybe this is the time to separate the two. Maybe this is the time that Lio Rush goes to SmackDown and starts making himself a bigger competitor as a singles competitor on the SmackDown brand. Because as we've seen, it can work on SmackDown. Look at Ali, a guy who was on 205 and been pushed into the main event cards. Now, Lio Rush, I wouldn't say we'd push him straight away into the main event, but we could easily have him challenging for the US title. Have him try and be that slithering like heel who tries to team up with someone like Samoa Joe and gets his ass whooped because Joe just doesn't have time for guys like Lio Rush. I mean, have that as his way to come from heel to babyface. Every time he tries to do something, Samoa Joe or other heels just take it out on him. And he just has enough. And he finally turns babyface and starts working his way up from the mid-card to the upper mid-card. Wouldn't that be exciting to see? I would love to see that storyline break down on SmackDown Live. So for me, Lio Rush is the next choice from going from Raw to SmackDown Live. My next prediction is from SmackDown to Raw is Becky Lynch. And now, hold on, I know what you guys are thinking. Hold on, Becky is both the champion of Raw and SmackDown. She'll be on both brands. That won't work. I'm sorry guys, it just won't work. Because let's be honest, Becky's the biggest name in women's wrestling right now. And WWE are going to have that biggest name on Raw. So that means for majority of her TV time, she's going to be Raw based. So if that means for some of the episodes for SmackDown, she will probably have to miss them. So if that is the case, and she is going to miss SmackDown, take the title off her. Now, you could easily do that. You can easily do that in a very McMahon way. Strip her of the SmackDown title. Gives the McMahons more heat, that's fine. Shane O'Mac's already heel, so if you have it that Shane does it, he's already got nuclear heat anyway. Adding him being the guy who strips the title off Becky, and then that gives more pleasure for the fans when the Miz defeats when Miz defeats Shane, then that's fine. Then allow the SmackDown title to have a tournament. Have a tournament to decide who's going to be the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Becky, on the other hand, can concentrate being the biggest name on Raw. And she will do that. She'll make the Raw Women's Division feel more and more, like the SmackDown Women's Division was when she first started as the man. Imagine the matches we could have. Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. Natalya versus Becky Lynch. Alexa Bliss. The storylines are already there from their previous time on SmackDown Live. And that could work. That's all you need to do. Yes, you are stripping her of one of the titles in her biggest moments of WrestleMania, but WrestleMania is over now, guys. We need to start focusing on the SmackDown Women's Division as well as the Raw Women's Division. Having the man go from SmackDown to Raw will make the Women's Division on Raw feel a lot more juicy, and then having the title as a tournament on SmackDown will make fans want to watch what's going on SmackDown for that title. So for me, Becky Lynch going to Raw permanently is a logical choice. Now let's look at another superstar who could possibly go from Raw to SmackDown Live. And that's none other than Braun Strowman. Only this week on SmackDown we had Braun come out, beat the crap out of Samoa Joe, and the fans went mental. Yes, I know it's a post-Mania crowd and they're always mental because, hell, it's post-Mania. But just imagine it. Just imagine Braun Strowman being on SmackDown Live. I would enjoy that. Braun Strowman has done so much on Raw and he's been built up fantastically. But recently he hasn't really done much. Now having him go to SmackDown would revamp the character, give him new opponents and give him new challenges. Hell, we could finally see Braun win his first singles title in WWE. Yes, he won the tag team titles with Nicholas at WrestleMania a few years ago, but let's be honest, we want to see Braun hold a singles title. Having him feud against Samoa Joe would be awesome. Can two big beasts who have been separated for so long finally collide, and who would come out on top? And I would pay big money for that. Two big guys like that should have a big wrestling match, and these two would steal the show. Hell, you can have it as Joe has to cheat. You have it as Braun just can't lift up Joe. It'll be an interesting way. Joe's technical style versus Braun's brute strength. How would that work out? So interesting. It's so interesting just to think about it. And putting the US title on the line, even more exciting. So for me, it has to be Braun Strowman going to SmackDown Live. Next, I'm predicting to go from SmackDown to Raw is none other than the best tag team in the world, the Usos. That's right, I want the Usos from going to SmackDown to Raw. Reason is, they will save the Raw tag team division. Like I stated when I was talking about Gallows and Anderson, you need teams to go from SmackDown to Raw, and the Usos are the best team. Them going over there will just prove it. If you have them feuding with Gallows and Anderson, Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, the B team, they could elevate any of those teams who are on Raw already and just elevate them to another level. And hell, having them hold the titles on Raw and as well as they did on SmackDown, they could easily just show everyone why the Usos are the best tag team in the world. If they can elevate teams on Raw, they definitely deserve that credit of being the best tag team in the world. So it's already kind of predicted because obviously they dropped the belts this week on SmackDown, and it was a hell of a match. For me, it was the best match of the week, having them versus the Hardy Boys. That's a dream match for me. So seeing them go from SmackDown to Raw would be an absolutely brilliant coup for the Raw tag team division. Like I keep stating, it's already very barren. Having the Usos go and Gallows and Anderson would just add so much more to that Raw tag team division just by adding two teams. So like I stated, the Usos going to Raw. Now, I've talked about teams going from SmackDown to Raw, but I have predicted a team going from Raw to SmackDown, and that's none other than the Revival. I know what you're thinking. Hold on, you've been going on and on about the Raw Tag Team division being barren, and you're taking the best tag team from Raw and sending them to SmackDown. Why would you do that? Well, easily. There's one reason and one reason only. The Revival need to be refreshed. They've lost the titles at Mania. They had their rematch on the Raw after Mania, and they lost again. They need a restart, and this is the perfect time for them. Going to SmackDown would be perfect for them. There are so much competition on SmackDown. They could easily build themselves back up. The New Day versus the Revival is a must-see match. The Bar versus the Revival, again, a must-see match. Sanity versus the Revival, again, we've seen it on NXT, but I would pay money to see it on SmackDown Live. The Revival needs competition. They need to fight against the best tag teams. Now, them staying on Raw, taking on the Usos and Gallows and Anderson would be awesome, but having them go to SmackDown, taking on the best teams, showing everyone why they're one of the best tag teams in the world, just makes sense to me. The Revival need a new start. They need to get away from the Raw Tag Team division, and they need to take on a lot of more better competition. Going to SmackDown will help them improve as a tag team, in my opinion. So having the Revival go from Raw to SmackDown just feels like a logical choice, in my opinion. Now, this is my last pick from going to SmackDown to Raw, and I left the best for last, I think, and I'm going for the phenomenal AJ Styles. Like I stayed with Gallows and Anderson, they were linchpin for this whole segment, really. AJ needs to go to Raw. We've had so many great memories of AJ on SmackDown. I know I'm a massive AJ fan, and when the rumours were hearing that AJ will be going to Raw last year, it kind of annoyed me because I was like, you can't have AJ go. Well, not last year, the year before, where there was so many rumours AJ was going to go to Raw. I'm glad it never happened, but now is the time, I think. I think it's time for AJ to go from being the biggest name on SmackDown and building himself up on Raw. A new challenge. Imagine the matches we can see. AJ versus Finn. AJ versus Seth. AJ versus Roman again. AJ versus Drew. Those are the matches I would want to see on Raw. And AJ is such a great competitor. He's the best in the world, in my opinion. So having him take on guys like that will just elevate him. And having him maybe win the Universal title would be absolutely fantastic. How much would we love it that the guy who everyone said would never make it in WWE, never get to WWE, has held both big titles, the Universal title and the WWE title. Wouldn't that just be something that we could all cheer for and all enjoy? So like I stated, AJ Styles from SmackDown to Raw. And my last pick from going from Raw to SmackDown. Now again, this was quite difficult. I didn't know how I was going to choose between quite a few people on this one, but it had to go to someone I think needs a restart, and she is a huge superstar, Bayley. Bayley has just recently lost the women's tag team division titles with her partner Sasha Banks, but I just feel like Bayley needs a new start in WWE, and I think it's about time she went to SmackDown. Having Bayley go over there, taking on people like Asuka, Charlotte, Naomi, it just makes sense. It would be fun to see. Having her having to face the Iconics every single week where they remind her how she lost the women's tag team titles to them would just be brilliant. She could build up a new team with maybe someone like Asuka, where her and Asuka take those titles off them because they're sick and tired of the Iconics, reminding people that they won the tag team titles. How great would that be? That yes, finally we get Bayley on SmackDown. She can go for the tag team titles if she wants, but having her challenging for the SmackDown Women's title, like I stated, if Becky gets it stripped from Shane O'Mac, have her compete in the tournament, have her get to the finals, and just remind everyone how good of a superstar she is. That's the best thing about tournaments. If WWE do a tournament, look at the Cruiserweight tournament, which they did, for when Neville, when Enzo left, they had that massive Cruiserweight tournament throughout 205, and it just made everyone excited to watch 205 again. You could do the same for the women's division, especially have someone like Bayley who's just gone from Raw to SmackDown, who's kinda, let's be honest, she's been doing tag team wrestling a lot lately, but she is a singles competitor. She is a former women's champion. Have her compete in the tournament and show everyone why she's one of the best women's wrestlers WWE have. And just have her win it would be absolutely brilliant. Have Bayley winning the SmackDown Women's Championship would just be absolutely brilliant. So for me, I am going with Bayley to SmackDown. Now I'm going to look at the 7 superstars who have already been announced from going from NXT to Raw and SmackDown. Now I'm just going to do this really quick because I don't really have a lot of storylines which these guys could go into, but these are my predictions on where these guys will go. So first things first, EC3. Quite simple, EC3 to SmackDown Live. It just makes the most logical sense, gives him some more TV time. He can take on people like Titus O'Neil if he goes to SmackDown, again building up character. Even if EC3 starts off in the mid card, at least give him something to do on SmackDown Live. Next up is Heavy Machinery. This was very, very simple where I would put Heavy Machinery. Raw. Like I stated, you're going to have, in my choices, the Usos, Gallows and Anderson, then Heavy Machinery. Replacing one tag team makes the most logical sense. Having them go there, having them compete against the Usos will really help them evolve as a tag team, and having them take on teams like Gallows and Anderson, who will, in my opinion, if they book them properly, will be an absolutely fantastic feud in that. Next up is Nikki Cross. Well, there was only one place I would send Nikki, and that's none other than SmackDown Live. Nikki needs to go to a division which is desperate for superstars, and SmackDown is the best opportunity for her to really shine. There's too many big names on Raw, and they really need to have someone like Nikki Cross on SmackDown to add a little bit more chaos to the SmackDown Women's division. Next up is Lars Sullivan. If we're replacing Braun Strowman and sending him to SmackDown, Lars Sullivan needs to go to Raw. Keep these two big men away from each other. That's all I'm saying until we get to Survivor Series, and then when we have the Survivor Series match, you can have Lars Sullivan versus Braun Strowman, Raw versus SmackDown. How awesome would that be to see that at Survivor Series? So having Lars going to Raw, just beating the crap out of everyone and building him like you build Braun Strowman would just be absolutely a brilliant idea from the creative team. Next up is none other than Lacey Evans. Now Lacey Evans was an easy choice as well because I'm going to send her straight to Raw. If Becky Lynch is in Raw, you send her to Raw. That's how it works. Like I stated, if we strip Becky of the SmackDown Women's title, have a tournament for that, then who's going to compete for the Raw title? Easy. Lacey Evans, Sasha Banks, and so many others like Alexa Bliss. You have Lacey Evans added to that where they've already started adding the crumbs of that feud. You could have her go to just follow her to Raw and compete against her there. Next up is none other than Aleister Black. Now this was such a hard choice because I didn't know if I was going to keep Aleister Black on Raw or SmackDown because he could just easily dominate on both shows. And I decided, I think if we're getting AJ to go from SmackDown to Raw, then we need Aleister Black to go to SmackDown. Reason is, Aleister Black is, I hate this comparison, but I think it's accurate in some ways, like a upgraded version of The Undertaker. If you can build Aleister Black like you did with The Undertaker, imagine how great that would be. Imagine how good that would be. You have him as the most dominant, he barely talks, he just comes out, he destroys people, and you just have him built up as this dark entity on SmackDown Live. It would just work so well. And have him have Nikki Cross interact with him as well on SmackDown Live, or just like we did on NXT, would be brilliant. Last but not least, from the NXT call-ups, Ricochet. This was the most difficult. Do I keep Aleister Black and Ricochet together as a tag team, or do I send him off to it by himself? I decided to send him off by himself and send him to Raw. Reason is, Ricochet is a hell of a superstar. He's a hell of a superstar, and I want to see him compete against guys like Finn Balor, AJ Styles, Seth friggin' Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, and just see how he competes. I really do think he will be an absolute legend in his time if he's on Raw. If they build it up properly, he will be one of the biggest names on that brand. So there you go, those are the 7 superstars from NXT and where I would send them in the Superstar Shake-Up. And there you go, guys, that is our Superstar Shake-Up predictions video. What did you guys think? Leave your predictions for the Superstar Shake-Up in the comments below. I want to see what you guys think. If you do like these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press that bell to keep notified. If you want to follow us on the old Twitter, it's at SmackTalkYouTube. If you want to follow me on the old Twitter, it's at Boyze88. And I'll see you guys next time on Smack Talk Wrestling videos.